The new AP poll came out on Monday, and the Tar Heels aren't back to being ranked yet. And you know what? They shouldn't be. At least not yet.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Tuesday, December 20th, 2022. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I am your host, Isaac Shade, and I want to thank you for diving in with us each and every day. Seriously, so many new folks coming and joining the podcast. We want to welcome you and make you feel like part of this family. Today on the show, all sorts of stuff going on. We're going to look at, we had our introduction to the new offensive coordinator for the football team. The women's basketball team plays tonight. We'll get you ready for that. But first, seriously, this new AP poll came out on Monday, and Carolina's not ranked yet. Several had wondered if they would be. But for me, frankly, no, they shouldn't be. It's not time yet. They had lost 4 in a row. Yes, it was 4 in a row to like quad one games, right? Iowa State, Alabama, 4 overtimes, at Indiana, and at Virginia Tech. And even though those are essentially understandable losses outside of Iowa State, in the eyes of the AP voters, when you're doing that early in the season, it's hard for them to change their minds about who you are and what you are and who you might become. For whatever it's worth, a lot of the AP voters just aren't either capable time-wise or whatever it is of just diving in and dialing in to a whole bunch of different schools. And so they're not seeing the progression Carolina is making. And so it takes time to win back over AP voters, and folks need to be aware of that. And plus, yes, you have a 3-game winning streak, but it's over Georgia Tech. It's over the Citadel, and it is over a ranked Ohio State team, but one who, frankly, you needed a miracle to beat. A well-drawn up and well-executed miracle, but a miracle. And so I say all that to say it's going to take more. You have to take care of business Wednesday against Michigan, and then you probably need to do maybe a little more than that. However, Carolina is just sneaking their way back in. Remember, 2 weeks ago, they had 1 vote in the AP poll. Last week, I believe it was 0, and they're climbing back. Now they are back in the others receiving votes. If you count out where they would be, it's actually 32nd overall. So they're climbing right back into that top 25 territory. And so they're going to get there. Now, as part of this trajectory back in the right direction, there are reasons to be encouraged about why Carolina is moving back towards being ranked. But there's also some things that have to be worked on and cleaned up that are still keeping them from being ranked. So I'm going to unpack those as yays and boos. Not alcohol, but like boo. Right, you're with me. You're all middle school brains like me, right? Booze. Everybody wants to drink. Okay, the yays. First off is, man, these assist percentage numbers continue to move right back in the right direction. We mentioned this on Monday's show, but to me, this is quintessentially Carolina turning into Carolina basketball, having now 3 straight games, this 3-game winning streak where they've assisted on over 50% of their baskets. That is incredibly good. I can't think of the word. It is relieving. That's the word I was looking for. It just that Carolina is finding its way into being itself and playing Carolina basketball. The reason specifically I bring this up again on a second day in a row is because I want to look at a different nuance of it. I think a lot of people, myself included, rightly give Caleb Love a lot of guff for taking what are oftentimes ill-advised shots and not finding as much playmaking distribution. Not so. As part of these last 3 games, perhaps it's no coincidence that part of the reason Carolina is sharing the ball so much better is Caleb Love is sharing the ball so much better. He has been the leading assister in each of these 3 games, averaging 6 in the stretch, including 7 versus just 2 turnovers against Ohio State on Saturday. You love that. As for another, yay! One of the things we had been watching out for was points in the paint where Carolina had been getting beaten. Well, I know we had said Ohio State was an overmatched front court in terms of height, size, but those dudes are thick. Like Zed Key is a big boy, and he has, as they often said on the broadcast on Saturday, has redistributed his body in many ways. And so it's no pushover in the post. They can hold their own there, the Ohio State front line. And so for Carolina to win the points in the paint battle, 44-38, is a big deal. Now, obviously, I'm talking about it pretty specifically in terms of post players against each other. But keep in mind, that's going to include layups and other things too. So it's good to see that the guards are attacking downhill and getting in there as well. Staying in the paint, another encouraging sign is Carolina once again won the rebounding battle, this time 48-42. And so that means they have now won the last in the 3-game winning streak. You see all this stuff coming together. After being negative in rebounds, they've now won the rebounding margin battle in each of the last 3 games, plus 21, plus 16, and then plus 6 against Ohio State. The season average is up to plus 4.75 over the other teams. Let me give you 2 more yays as to why Carolina is progressing back towards being ranked. And they both revolve around the free throw line. You've heard me talk about how good a job the Tar Heels are doing of getting to the line. In particular, Armando Bacot just forces a ton of fouls out of the other team, draws so many of them. Well, in terms of free throw attempts, Carolina is 9th in the nation in average free throw attempts per game, but they're 2nd amongst major conference teams. Only Texas A&M is above them. And then even more impressively, it's not just, I've said this a lot, it's not just that they're getting there, it's that they're making them. They made just 70% against Ohio State, and that was a down day for the Tar Heels. And so that is an encouraging thing. So 9th in the nation in free throws made, but now free throws assists, they're 3rd in the nation behind only New Mexico and again, Texas A&M. Not just 3rd amongst like 3rd period in terms of average free throws made per game. Man, if Carolina can continue to be that aggressive, to force a lot of fouls on the other team, then that is getting back to some of that Dean Smith, Roy Williams, like, hey, we're going to make more free throws than our opponent attempts. And if Carolina is doing that, I don't care where this, I mean, I do care, but it doesn't matter as much where the 3-point shooting is at, things of that nature. You really want to be efficient around the rim, efficient at the free throw line, and improving at the 3-point line. Those are what we're looking to see. And so all those yays, that's great stuff there. But we do have to look at the boos. I want to be, as always, an equal opportunity praiser and critiquer, but hopefully constructive criticism. Don't want to tear down just to tear down, but be able to look at things and try to evaluate how to improve and where you're already doing well. So the first one is obviously this glaring 3-point percentage. Carolina shot 6 for 28, 21% against Ohio State. Caleb Love hit 4 threes. That's awesome. Oh, but the problem is he needed 13 to get there. That ain't great. RJ Davis, who, similar to Caleb, had great moments in this game, was from the field in general was really good. It's just from the 3-point line, he wasn't as good, 1 for 5. The one that kind of really stings is Pete Nance, who was 0 for 6. And it's not like he was, Caleb, I had said on Monday's show, had forced a couple, I really thought. And I thought all of Pete Love's, I haven't gone back and watched all 6 of them where I can say this definitively, but as far as I can remember, all 6 were shots that I thought he should be taking within the flow of the offense, and it made sense for him to pull on those. And had a bunch of good looks, just didn't drop. So Carolina, as a team, thankfully, because of all those ones they made against Citadel, is over 30% for the season, but just barely 30.4%. So here's the big question. I see 3 possibilities. Number 1, is this a bad shooting team? Number 2, are they a good shooting team, but they're taking the wrong shots? Or is it 3? They're a good shooting team and they're taking the right shots. There's just some kind of pandemic amongst the team where they're just not going in right now. It's one of those 3 things. Either this just isn't as good a shooting team as last year. I guess I should put it that way. They're good shooters. They're just taking the wrong shots, or they're taking the right shots and they're a good shooting team, but they're just not falling. It's one of those 3 things for me. And I don't know that we're ready to fully answer that question yet. There are definitely good shooters on this team. It's just, as a team, is Carolina good shooters this year? We're going to have to keep watching that to find out. My next boo is some bench stuff. In a game that went to overtime, the Tar Heels scored precisely 3 bench points, 1 for each half in overtime, right? That's all it was. Puff Johnson had 2 and Tyler Nickel had 1. That's it. That's all the bench production in terms of offensive points scored. Well, part of that is the bench just didn't play many minutes. It's just low, right? In total, 31 minutes and 51 seconds of bench play in a game. Like in a regulation game, you have 200 total minutes. So that's 31 out of that, which seems a little better until you remember that you have 25 extra minutes because 5 players on the court at a time for 5 more minutes of overtime. So that's 31 minutes in 51 seconds in 225 total minutes. That's not a lot. And maybe it's who you're playing. There's all these things that factor in, but we had been watching like, hey, is what happened against the Citadel a marker of things to come in terms of using the bench more and getting 42 points out of the bench? Or was that just because it was Citadel? Right now, it appears that it was just because it was Citadel. We'll have to keep watching, see what happens tomorrow night, Wednesday night against Michigan. And then the last thing on the boo is that the total number of turnovers themselves haven't been that bad, but there's a lot of just silly turnovers that shouldn't happen. And again, I don't think the overall turnover numbers are that inflated, but you could really even cut down and consistently be having single-digit turnovers. That would make this team immensely better already than they're playing right now. Well, we'll have to wait and see how they follow up on tomorrow against Michigan. We will have our full recap of that game. Me and Pat Kilby bringing it to you. Well, on Monday, more action in another Carolina sport. Offensive Coordinator Chip Lindsey had his introductory press conference. Would love to tell you more about that and what you can expect both in the short and long term. And we're going to do that in just a second. But first, this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn, which has every new potential hire has the possibility to feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. It's incredibly easy to create a free job post, so why not give it a try? Add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and ultimately hire. You want to finish the year strong, and the right new hire can help you do just that. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, I gotta be honest. I did not see this choice coming for offensive coordinator. Carolina played it very intentionally close to the best. Matt Brown talked about that at his press conference on Monday. They just didn't want a whole bunch of people out there speculating and throwing names about. He wanted to control it, and I love it. It felt like I'm a Braves fan. That's how the Braves do these things. People make all these big speculations, and Alex Anthopoulos pulls this rabbit out of a hat, and it's like, what on earth? I love that Mac Brown led this search in a similar way. It's not Seth Luttrell. It's not Garrett Riley. Some of these names you heard bandied about. In fact, Mac Brown said, some of these names y'all heard, I didn't even talk to them or consider them. And I love it, man. Mac is a dude. Well, it is Chip Lindsey. And this dude, his offenses have been electric. He's coming over from UCF, Central Florida, where he was offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. And you might hear that and think, what? Well, keep in mind, UCF for the past decade or so has a history of great offenses. This specific connection comes into play because he was at Auburn before he was head coach at Troy, where he was the offensive coordinator for who? Gus Malzahn, who went to Central Florida. And then there you go. Chip Lindsey goes with him. My first reaction, my biggest take to this whole thing, I don't really care about a name or a splashy hire. It doesn't have to be bringing Seth Littrell back. It doesn't have to be bringing in Garrett Riley. What I care about is the right hire. And for me, what does the right hire mean? It means that Mack Brown wants him. If you trust Mack Brown, you trust Mack Brown's hiring capability. But chiefly, if Drake Maye is on board, then I'm on board, and so should be you. We're at a point where Drake Maye is the calming voice of Tar Heel Nation. Think back a couple weeks ago, on a day where there were multiple Tar Heel defections, including the very man Chip Lindsey is replacing. Keep in mind, it was Drake Maye's tweet that put the fan base at ease. You remember that? Like, hey, I'm here, I'm staying, I'm not going anywhere. People were freaking out. Hey, if Phil Longo's gone, so's Drake Maye. No, sir. He's still here. Well, same thing happened with the hiring of Coach Lindsey, where people are like, what should we feel? What do we think? Is this the right guy? I don't know. Drake tweets out, he quote tweeted, the hiring tweet and said, quote, had the chance to visit with Coach Lindsey and fired up to work with him. Let's get to work. That's all the news that people need to know that everything's going to be fine and that everything's going to be all right. Like Drake Maye is that voice for people right now, because Coach Brown can say it all he wants. Like, this is the guy, this is the right guy. But it's just hard to know for a lot of people, is that coach speak, right? Do I trust you? But when a presumptive, top 3 preseason nominee for next year's Heisman says, I'm all in on this guy and I want to work with him next year, you can take that to the bank. And so for me, this hiring is perhaps the best thing from a continuity standpoint, because basically nothing's really changing in a grand way with the offense. Nothing really changes scheme-wise. And part of that is, if you're Mack Brown, you can't afford to waste your second and final year with Drake Maye as your quarterback. You got to go out and get somebody who's going to basically allow Drake Maye to not have to overhaul his learning of a whole new offensive system, which he could do because he's spectacular. But if he can kind of carry on in the same vein with the same terminology, same personnel groupings, things of that nature, that allows Drake Maye to continue to play within the same giftedness and skill set that he did this season, that's what you want. But here's the thing. Was this offense perfect? Absolutely not. Too many sacks allowed, not enough balance with the rushing game. Clearly things have fallen off these last 3 games, the 2 final regular season games, Georgia Tech, NC State, and then in the ACC championship game against Clemson. Now, you're not going to see these big overhaul changes for the Holiday Bowl against Oregon, but that coming into spring ball, that's what you're going to get. So you go get someone like this who's going to utilize the same personnel, that same skill set, of Drake Maye, the same verbiage, all those things, but also brings in fresh eyes, a fresh brain, brings in fresh new wrinkles that hopefully allow the Heels to restart what the beginning of this season had, right? Everything up until that Georgia Tech game, to bring back hopefully that offensive dynamism and explosiveness. At UCF this year, they were 26th in the nation in scoring. They were 11th in total offense per game. And perhaps most importantly, they were 8th in the nation in rushing offense per game. And that, to me, is the wrinkle. That's what sets this apart and makes it something that I'm really excited about. That's the quote-unquote tweak. No remake, no overhaul. Mack wants this system to get better. How does it get better? With better blocking and better running, which kind of go hand in hand in a lot of ways. Think about it as a building. We're not raising the building, R-A-Z-I-N-G, like cutting it down and starting over with a fresh foundation. You're just remodeling the one you already have to update it, to make it better, right? Hopefully update it in a better way. UCF this year had 200 plus rushing yards in a game 9 times, 33 total rushing touchdowns, was 10th nationally. That's what you're bringing to the table. Oh, by the way, to go with Drake Maye, who I know loses Josh Downs and Antoine Green. I get all that. But there are potential possible awesome new wrinkles worked in. Now, in terms of the connection between Coach Lindsey and the new offensive line coach, Randy Clements, they've I didn't know this connection for, but are apparently good friends who've wanted to work together for a long time. And so you see a lot of possibility there. They just want to get out and move defensive dudes around. And the way they're going to do that, Coach Lindsey talked about 3 things at his introductory press conference that his offense will be. And he said this: our offense, I want it to be fast, and I want it to be disciplined, and I want it to be physical. And he believes that if Carolina can be those 3 things, oh, by the way, with Drake Maye at the helm, they can be a very successful offense once again, even despite losing some pieces on the line, some other skill position players, things of that nature. And so I'm looking forward to see it. Now, again, we're not going to see it in the bowl game. Neither Coach Lindsey nor Coach Clements are coaching leading up to the Holiday Bowl, nor are they going to coach in it. They are in observational roles right now. They're part of meetings and things of that nature. Lonnie Galloway is going to step in and coach quarterbacks right now and call plays for the bowl game. So that's what you can be watching out for. And obviously other people are shifting responsibilities to help coach the line and then fill in other gaps, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of interesting stuff coming ahead. Keep your eyes peeled for it. For the Carolina football team, we are getting very close to the bowl game, just over a week away. We'll continue to get you ready for that, including coming up an interview with Cedric Gray, who we know now is definitely staying for sure next season. Watch out for that coming up on the show. Well, the women kick off the Jumpman Invitational tonight in Charlotte, also playing Michigan, followed by the guys tomorrow night. I want to get you prepped and ready for that game. A 4th matchup with another top 25 opponent in the non-conference schedule. Coach Banghart's team is doing it. Want to get you ready for that. And we'll do so in just a second. But first, this episode is brought to you by NHTSA. Did you know that driving high is considered driving under the influence? Interesting. Yeah, driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every state, even in states where marijuana is legal. If you didn't know that, you need to know that. That means driving high could get you a DUI. And if you think that law enforcement officers can't tell when you're driving high, well, folks, you are dead wrong. Your friends can tell, your coworkers can tell, even your parents can tell. Everyone can tell. Just trust me. I spent this past weekend in New York. You can absolutely tell when someone's high. What makes you think that the law enforcement officers don't know when you're driving high if all those other people can spot it out? Driving under the influence of marijuana can slow your response time and change how you perceive both time and speed. So even if you think you're fine to drive when you're high, you're not. Because the bottom line is, if you feel different, then you drive different. And driving high is driving under the influence. So remember, drive high, get a DUI. This is paid for by the NHTSA. Okay, coming up tonight, the Women's Jumpman Invitational, the inaugural matchup of these 4 Jumpman-sponsored schools. So obviously Carolina, Michigan, but also Oklahoma and Florida. It's a bit of a wonky schedule. Tonight, Tuesday, the Carolina women are playing the Michigan women, and then also the Oklahoma men and Florida men are playing, and then it's flip-flopped tomorrow night, where Carolina men will play the Michigan men, and then Oklahoma and Florida's women's teams will play as well. Kind of a wonky schedule, but that's what it is. Here's the details for Carolina women's game tonight. UNC versus Michigan in Charlotte in the Spectrum Center. Pretty cool that they're doing it there. 7 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN2. Here's the biggest thing for this game for North Carolina. They're going up. They are 6th in the nation, going against Michigan, who is ranked 19th. For me, this is an opportunity to solidify yourself as a bona fide top 10 team in America heading in to conference play. Why? Again, I just said this is the 4th ranked team you've played. Right now, the Tar Heels are 2-1 in those games. They beat 18 Oregon, they beat 5 Iowa State, but they lost at 5 Indiana, understandably so, as did the guys. But now they have this 4th opportunity. And think about the difference in being 2-2 versus 2-2 versus ranked teams against 3-1 versus ranked teams. That just feels massively different. It's like let's go back to baseball again, second time in the show. If I'm a batter, a 3-1 count feels very different from a 2-2 count. You know what I mean? For those of you that are baseball folks out there or softball folks out there. And so that's the difference. Carolina needs to win this game to be 3-1 heading in to ACC play, to really continue to solidify not only their top 10 status, but continue to have resume builders for the selection committee to look at and consider. Boy, that's going to put them in a great place. And keep in mind, the ACC conference is loaded on the women's side of things. Not as high this year for the guys, but for the women, man, the ACC is absolutely loaded. Chock-a-block, full of opportunities to get more big wins throughout the conference portion of the season. And here's the thing for me. This is a mature, experienced, confident team who can go into this game and, hopefully just do work on it. But if not, if they should fall behind, they're not a team that's going to get worried or distraught. We have seen them have massive comebacks this season. And sometimes that happens in a game, right? You just don't have it right out of the gate. Even if you're prepared and ready, sometimes it just doesn't click. But this team sticks with it and finds a way. And so whether they come out hot or not, I'm really curious to see how this game goes. And hopefully they can finish the non-conference portion of the schedule 3-1 against ranked opponents. As for Michigan, as I said, they are ranked 19th, but I think perhaps that ranking is a little inflated as I look at their schedule and their wins. They've only got 1 loss, but it's to Toledo. Close loss. It was only 3 points. But they've only played 1 ranked team, and it was Baylor, who's 21st. And so I'm not fully sure yet what to make of the Michigan women's team. Obviously they are strong and good, but I just don't know that they hold up against what Carolina can bring at them in a multitude of ways. Interestingly, this is just the second time these two women's teams have ever played. They played back in 1987 with, of course, North Carolina taking the victory in that one. Part of what, keep in mind, makes the Tar Heels so tough, not only is their experience and maturity, although they'll get to bring a lot of that back again next season, is that they're balanced as a scoring attack. 4 players average in the 13 to 15 point range. All 4 of those are top 15 scorers in the ACC. Deja Kelly, averaging 15.4 points per game, is 7th in the conference. Alyssa Utsby and Kennedy Todd Williams are both at 14.3 points per game, good for 9th in the conference. And Eva Hodgson has 13.2 points per game, good for right at 15th in the conference. And so what I love that this team brings is it's one of those teams who you never know who's going to do it to you on a given night. If you're the opponent, if you're Courtney Banghart, you kind of love that you don't know who's going to do it for you on a given night. You have your good ideas that more often than not, for example, it's going to be Deja Kelly. But remember, a couple games ago, it wasn't her, but everybody else picked up the slack and did it. Night in and night out, somebody is going to do work for the Lady Tar Heels. Keep an eye on. The biggest thing for me to keep an eye on in this one is Paulina Paris and her minutes and her performance. That stretch against the 3 other ranked teams that Carolina played, her playing time and production kind of dropped off a little bit there, which you expect from the only freshman on the team who's still getting worked into this thing. Coach Banghart wants to protect her, obviously, a little bit. And when you've got such experience to rely on for those high-level games and let Paulina kind of work her way in a little bit, you're just afforded that luxury with this team. But those minutes in production have grown back slowly and surely these past 3 games since then, including their last game, USC Upstate, career highs in points, made field goals, made 3-pointers. And so you just love to see like she's getting it. Confidence is growing. She's doing work and getting her further worked in a lot, along with some of these red shirts and sophomores who are younger. And again, several of the starters are juniors who will be back likely next year as well. But with Paulina really working her way in, you need that to continue to build depth for the program, both in the short and long term. And so keep your eyes on how she continues to progress and work to be an integral part of this unit, which I think what she brings to the team can really help them work towards achieving their ceiling. So keep your eyes out on that as you watch the Lady Tar Heels cheer them on. It's in Charlotte, man. Go watch the game. If you're local, would be great. I know a lot of people are going to be there. I've been seeing in different chats that I'm in, and some of the other sports media folks I know, producers and other podcast hosts. And so make sure you go to the game if you have an opportunity to do so. Friends, that's it for today's episode of Locked on Tar Heels. As I said, coming up tomorrow, Coach Pat Kilby and I, as always on Wednesday, we're going to get you ready for the guys game against Michigan on Wednesday night. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked on Heels. You can follow me on Twitter at Isaac Shade. Send the show an email, lockedontarheels@gmail.com. Would love to get your nominations for Heel of the Week and Heel of the Week. For your second listen of the day, check out Locked On Sports Today. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and of course, the take of the day. It's available on Odyssey, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcast. Don't forget, subscribe, smash the like button. Please leave some comments on any of this. We've had a great variety of stuff we've talked about today. Really appreciate you spending part of your Tuesday to hang out with me. It seriously means so much that you would choose to do so. I want to remind you, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel, right? You know it. Until tomorrow, peace.